All right, so I've been working on this project for a while, and so far we've done poster designs, social media designs, typography designs, magazine ads, billboard ads, and now it's finally time to finish it all up. So the last two things on my list to complete for this project are tags and a shoebox design. Now, I did record me making the tag designs, but I didn't record myself whenever I made the shoebox designs. Now, the reason why I didn't record that process is just because I'm going to be working in a Photoshop mockup. So it would really just be me jumping between a bunch of different smart objects and making small changes. And I thought doing that, recording it and speeding it up and trying to make it cohesive would just look really kind of crazy and sporadic in a way that wouldn't really be fun to watch, just because I'd be jumping between a bunch of different small projects and going back and checking things and moving it, and I just thought it would be a chaotic mess and just wouldn't look good on screen. But of course, I still want to go over what I made, and we can still talk about my thought process making them and kind of where I ended up. So here are the 4 box designs that I ended up coming up with. Really what I wanted to do was just take the Vans box that they already have and just make some slight adjustments to make it work with this ad campaign. Like I said in the very first video, I bought a new pair of shoes just for this project, and I kept the box for this purpose. So I could take a look at that box and then just kind of mimic some of the things I had already done and then just tweak and make adjustments to things that I wanted to, like adding the typography that we worked in on the last episode. Really, these box designs were kind of a culmination of all the things that I've worked on so far on this project. I was just bringing in different assets and things that I had made throughout this project and just kind of tweaking them to add them onto the box and just seeing what I could come up with, which honestly I think had some really good results just because I had already done all the work. So I kind of already knew what might and might not work. So all I really had to do was just kind of drop it in, maybe make a couple of tweaks, and then just call it there. But of course, I wanted to make sure that I did my due diligence and that I was trying to come up with as many variations as I possibly could, so that way the idea that I end up landing on, I know would be the best idea for the project. Now, my favorite 2 are these 2 right here. The reason I picked 2 is because I would imagine this would be a decision that would come from the company, because their boxes right now kind of have that like tan color. I don't know if there's a specific reason for that, or if, if they wanted to switch to a white box, it would cost more, which means maybe they wouldn't necessarily want to go that route. So having these 2 options would be a good way to kind of present them to the client, so we could say, if the project went exactly how we envisioned, we would go with this white box, but if for some reason the white box isn't really doable, we have a backup option that would work just as well, but would work better with the tan color. But of course, since I'm not actually working with Vans, I can kind of make this project whatever I want. And so for me, the box that I'm going to go with is this white one. So that pretty much sums up everything for the shoe boxes. So let's move on to the tags. So my first idea for our new tag was to take the tag that Vans already has and then add better with wear around it, using a lot of the kind of jumbled up crazy typography that I'd already been using. I thought that might be a good way to kind of blend the 2. That way there's something that people are already familiar with, but I'm just bringing in something new that would kind of go along with this ad campaign. And honestly, I think this was one of those things where the idea is much better in your head, but in execution, it just doesn't really work out that well. So my second idea was to take the Vans Off the Wall logo, but instead of having Vans Off the Wall inside of it, it would have Better with Wear inside of it. So I brought it into Illustrator because I thought that would be a little bit easier to work in that kind of way. And so I just kind of brought it in there, was just kind of experimenting and trying to see what I could come up with. And the results were okay. It worked, but I just didn't really feel like it was a very strong design. And so I was like, I'll just leave it there. It exists if I want to use it, but if not, I don't have to use it. So after that, I just kept going and seeing what else I could make up. So after that, I thought maybe my problem is I'm trying to focus too much on what's already there, and I'm trying to use the tag that they already have, that shape, that color. And so I was like, well, let me just try something completely different. And so I wanted to go with a more of like a traditional shirt tag kind of design or shape. And so that's where I started. I figured this would be a lot easier to work with just because it has a more traditional shape. So I was like, oh, well, I can definitely work with this and it would be a lot easier. And it would also allow me to keep the typography that I've already used and just bring that right over, because since it already works with a rectangular shape, I was like, it'll just fit right in. But once I had that idea pretty much down, it was really just making a bunch of tweaks, the color, the shape, where everything is sitting, and just trying to make sure it was the best that I could possibly make it. And even though that was good, I still wasn't quite happy because I thought, well, if they always use this kind of tag, maybe they're kind of attached to it. And so I thought maybe I should try a little bit harder to make sure that I find something that works well with the tag that they already have. And so my next thought process was, what if I just kind of take the tag that they already have and then just tweak it ever so slightly? So let's say filling in the tag with some different textures and colors and that kind of thing. And so that's what I did. I tried adding in all of the assets that I'd already been using, just trying to put them in, but the contrast wasn't quite working. So I just started bringing in a bunch of assets that I have, like all these just kind of like cardboard and trashy and ripped paper textures that I have, and just seeing if I can make something good with that. Which honestly, I don't think it's my best work, but I do think it turned out all right. It definitely takes something that's familiar and then tweaks it to make it a little bit different, and I think that's what's cool about it. But I still wasn't quite happy because I just didn't think it was really gonna fly. So I just thought, let me do the simplest thing that I can do, which is basically just take what they already have and then just kind of make it look a little kind of roughed up, maybe ripped up, something like that. So that way it still goes along with the Better with Wear campaign, but it's pretty much exactly the same. So here's the tag that I ended up going with. I made some slight adjustments to the one that you probably already saw in the video. I thought that it could use just a little bit of some tweaking, but honestly, it's not that much different from where we left off in the screen recordings. I know I mentioned this earlier in the video, but really my goal with these tags was to keep it pretty similar and just make some slight adjustments so that way it was unique enough on its own that would feel different, but also familiar enough to where you would know exactly what it is. And the way that I would think about this is kind of like a collector's edition, almost like, like a shiny version of a Pokemon. It's not something completely new and unheard of, but it takes an old idea and makes some slight adjustments to make it a little bit better, and it's something that's a little bit more rare that you wouldn't really find all the time. And it would also have the benefit of not having to cost the company like a bunch of different money to go to a different printer and print out different tags. They could pretty much do what they're already doing and just use a different file. It would still attach to the shoes the same way, so there really wouldn't be much changes that would need to go into making this an actual product. But with the tag complete, we're finally finished with this project. So the only thing left to do is to show you guys the final work and just give my final thoughts. So just make sure to tune in next week for the last episode of the series where I'll be showing all of the work that we've done so far.